I never thought a family trip could feel like this. Like I was just a shadow walking beside people who were supposed to be my own blood. From the outside, we looked like a picture-perfect family. My mom, my dad, my sister, and me. But behind the smiles, there was something no camera could capture. The way I was treated. The way I was made to feel like I didn't belong. I remember the very first day of that trip. Everyone was laughing, talking over each other, making plans about what to see first. I tried to join in, but every word I said seemed to vanish in the air, ignored, as if my voice was nothing more than background noise. And the worst part? They didn't even notice. When the hotel clerk asked for our names to check in, my mom cheerfully gave hers, my dad added his, and my sister leaned over the counter, giggling about how excited she was. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, my mom cut in with, "Oh, and this is our other daughter. Don't worry about her, she's quiet." I froze. Quiet? That wasn't who I was. That wasn't my identity. That was just the label they'd slapped on me, the excuse they used to erase me from every moment. As the trip went on, the feeling only grew heavier. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a stranger tagging along, but little did they know that week would change everything. Because being ignored broke me in ways I can't even describe, but it also planted a seed inside me. A seed of anger, of hurt, of something I could no longer keep buried. And by the time this trip was over, the same people who treated me like I didn't exist would finally see me. They would see the side of me they'd never expected, and they would regret the way they had pushed me into the shadows. The morning we left for the trip should have felt exciting. You know that nervous rush before a family getaway, packing bags, last-minute checklists, the buzz of adventure. For me, it didn't feel like that at all. I dragged my suitcase down the stairs, struggling with the weight, while my parents and sister were already in the living room, sipping coffee, laughing about how my sister had overpacked. My dad teased her, "You've packed half the house again, haven't you?" She giggled, flipping her hair. "Well, I have to look good in pictures, Dad." They all laughed together. Nobody even glanced at me struggling with my bag until I tripped on the last step and hit the floor. My mom gave me a quick look, sighed, and muttered, "Careful, don't make a scene before we even leave." That was it. No helping hand, no concern. Just another reminder that I didn't belong in their little bubble of love. The car ride was no different. My sister climbed straight into the front seat without hesitation, sliding next to Mom. They plugged in her favorite playlist, and soon the car filled with pop songs, my parents clapping along. And me? I was shoved into the back, pressed against my suitcase like extra luggage they had to carry. I tried to join in. "Hey, maybe we can play that game we used to." But before I could finish, my mom turned up the music, drowning out my voice. My sister was too busy taking selfies, giggling about filters and hashtags. And my dad? He was humming to the music, not even glancing at me in the rearview mirror. I sat there in silence, the window pressed against my cheek, watching the highway blur by. And in that moment I told myself, it's fine. It's just the car ride. Maybe once we get there, things will be different. But I was wrong. The hotel was beautiful. Tall glass doors, marble floors, and chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Families bustled in and out, kids running around with ice creams, parents calling them back with laughter in their voices. I remember thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where the trip will finally feel like we're all together. At the check-in desk, my dad leaned forward proudly, giving the clerk our details. My mom chimed in, "We'll need a suite, something spacious for the four of us." My sister leaned across the counter, flashing her brightest smile. "Oh, and could we get a room with a view? I want the ocean in my pictures." The clerk laughed politely, tapping at the computer. And me? I stood there, holding the luggage cart, invisible, silent, waiting for someone to acknowledge I was part of this family. But they didn't. When we got to the suite, it was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a balcony overlooking the sea, soft white beds lined up perfectly. My sister ran straight to the biggest bed, jumping onto it like a child. "This one's mine," she announced. My parents laughed. "Of course it is. You need the space. They claimed the second bed without hesitation, already unpacking their things into the drawers. I looked around, waiting. There were 3 beds, but somehow no one left space for me. And then my mom turned to me, almost like an afterthought. "Oh, you can use the cot in the corner. It folds out, the cot." A creaky, flimsy bed was shoved near the window. The kind of thing you'd give a guest who overstayed their welcome. I forced a smile and nodded. But inside, my chest tightened. "I'm not a guest. I'm your daughter. Why do you treat me like a stranger?" That night, while they were ordering room service and laughing over dessert, I sat on that cot, listening to their voices echo like I was eavesdropping in someone else's home. And still, I told myself it's fine. Maybe tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow was just the beginning of my invisibility. The next morning, sunlight poured into the suite, bouncing off the ocean waves outside our window. My sister stretched dramatically on her soft bed, sighing. I love vacations. My parents laughed, agreeing with her like she was the center of the universe. Me? I was curled on that creaky cot in the corner, my back sore from the metal bars poking through the thin mattress. My blanket had slipped onto the floor during the night, but no one noticed. No one cared. I tried to shake off the feeling as we headed down for breakfast. The dining hall was bright and buzzing with families, kids piling pancakes onto their plates, parents pouring orange juice, the clink of silverware against porcelain echoing all around. We sat at a table for 4. My parents and sister immediately started talking about the day's plans. "Let's go sightseeing after breakfast," Mom suggested. "Yeah, and maybe shopping afterward," my sister added with a grin. Dad nodded. "Sounds good." I cleared my throat softly. "Maybe we could also try—" But before I could finish, the waiter arrived. My sister snapped her fingers slightly, smiling sweetly. "I'll have the strawberry waffles, with whipped cream." My parents quickly followed with their orders. Then the waiter turned to me, expectant. For a moment, I froze, because my parents were already back to chatting, ignoring me completely. I whispered my order, almost embarrassed. The waiter gave me a pitying smile, like he could see what I was too ashamed to admit. When the food arrived, it was exactly how I feared. My sister's plate was perfect. Fresh strawberries, a mountain of cream, golden waffles drizzled with syrup. Mine was wrong. They'd brought me plain toast and eggs. The order had been mixed up. I opened my mouth to correct it, but then I looked at my family. My mom was cutting my sister's waffles for her. My dad was snapping photos of her plate. And they were all laughing together like they were in a commercial. No one even noticed my meal was wrong. So I just ate in silence, chewing on dry toast, the taste of loneliness sticking in my throat. Later that day, we went sightseeing. We stood before ancient ruins, towering cliffs, and breathtaking views. My sister posed in every spot, my parents beaming with pride as they snapped photo after photo. "Stand here, honey," Mom gushed. "Yes, tilt your chin like that, perfect," Dad chuckled. "My beautiful girl. This one will get 100 likes." I stepped closer, quietly, hoping to be included. Maybe I could, but Mom waved me off. "Oh, just take this one of us 3, will you?" And that's what I became. The photographer, the one behind the lens, never in front of it. By the end of the day, my sister's phone was full of hundreds of pictures, her laughing, her twirling, her pretending to lean against monuments. I scrolled through my own phone that night. Empty, not a single memory with me in it. But the worst moment came that evening. We were back in the suite, everyone exhausted. My parents were lying on the big bed. My sister was sprawled out with her headphones, and I sat by the window, staring at the sea. That's when I heard my mom's voice. Soft, whispering. "She's just different. Not like her sister. She doesn't really fit in." I froze. I don't think she knew I could hear her. My dad didn't argue. He just hummed in agreement. Not like her sister. Doesn't really fit in. Those words pierced me deeper than any blade could. I bit my lip so hard it almost bled, trying not to cry, trying not to let them hear how much it hurt. Because in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't just me imagining it. It wasn't just bad luck or overthinking. They really did see me as less, as someone who didn't belong, ignored, excluded, not hated, not even acknowledged enough for that, just erased. And with each small humiliation, each empty glance, each laugh that didn't include me, the hurt inside me grew heavier, until I could feel it burning. That night, I lay on the cot staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying their words over and over. She doesn't really fit in. And for the first time, I let the anger settle in my chest. If I didn't fit in their picture-perfect family, then maybe it was time to remind them that the picture wasn't complete without me. They wanted to pretend I didn't exist. Fine. But I was going to make them see me, even if it meant shattering the image they loved so much. And that was the night I decided. Tomorrow, I would stop waiting to be included. Tomorrow, I will start watching and planning. Because no matter how hard they tried to erase me, I wasn't going to stay invisible forever. By the third night of the trip, I had learned to expect very little. A fold-out cot in the corner, wrong orders at restaurants, being the invisible hand behind every family photo. It had all become normal. But what happened that evening? That was different. That was the moment everything inside me cracked. Went to a restaurant my mom had been raving about since before the trip. A fancy place with chandeliers that glittered, like falling stars, and waiters who carried themselves like royalty. The kind of restaurant where even the breadbasket looked like it belonged in a magazine. The moment we walked in, my sister lit up. "Oh my gosh, this is perfect. I have to take a picture here." And of course, my parents encouraged her, arranging her hair, fixing the angle, making sure the lighting was just right. I stood behind them, clutching the edge of my chair, waiting to sit down, waiting for anything. An invitation, a look, a word, nothing. The waiter handed us menus, thick and heavy like books. My parents dove straight in. My sister squealed at the dessert page. "Strawberry cheesecake. I'm definitely getting that." "Of course, honey," Dad said with a grin. "Order whatever you want." When it was my turn to look, I barely had a chance. My mom was already waving the waiter over, rattling off their orders. By the time the waiter's eyes landed on me, my parents were mid-conversation, not even bothering to check what I wanted. I ordered something small, the cheapest pasta dish on the menu, my voice barely above a whisper. Dinner went as usual. They're laughing. They're talking over each other. My sister showing off her selfies. I sat there, silent, my fork scraping against the plate, trying to pretend the food didn't taste like cardboard with every bite. But then came the bill. The waiter placed the leather folder in the center of the table. My dad picked it up, scanned it casually, and then slid it across the table toward me. "Why don't you cover this one?" he said, his tone light, almost teasing. At first, I thought it was a joke. I laughed nervously, waiting for him to smile to say he was kidding. But he didn't. My mom sipped her wine without looking at me. My sister smirked, stabbing her fork into the last bite of her cheesecake. I don't have that kind of money," I said softly. My dad shrugged. "It's good practice. You should learn responsibility." My chest tightened. "But I can't. I only brought—" My mom cut me off. "Don't argue. Just handle it." My hands trembled as I opened my wallet. Inside was the emergency cash I had saved for months. Money I needed for textbooks, for groceries when I got back home, for surviving the semester. And now, in front of everyone, I was being forced to pour it all into a bill I didn't even agree to. The waiter stood patiently, watching. People at nearby tables were glancing over. My face burned with humiliation. Slowly, with shaking hands, I handed over the money. The waiter nodded politely, but I could feel the pity in his eyes. He knew, he saw it. And my family? They just carried on chatting as if nothing had happened, as if I were just a stranger picking up the tab. I sat there, my stomach knotted so tight I could barely breathe. The humiliation wrapped around me like a chokehold, and in that moment something inside me broke. This wasn't just being ignored. This wasn't just being left out of photos or forgotten at meals. This was betrayal. My own family, the people who were supposed to protect me, to stand beside me, had turned me into their joke. Their scapegoat. They didn't see me as a daughter. They didn't even see me as family. I walked out of that restaurant with my heart pounding, my chest heavy, and a single thought echoing in my head. This trip will not end like this. If they wanted to treat me like I was nothing, then I would show them what nothing really looked like. If they wanted to erase me from the family picture, then I would tear the frame apart. That night, as I lay awake on my cot, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't beg for their attention anymore. I wouldn't wait for them to see me. From this moment forward, I would become something else. Silent, calculating, watching. And by the end of this trip, the same family that had laughed at my humiliation would regret ever pushing me into the shadows. That night, after the restaurant, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake on that squeaky cot, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, every word, every laugh, every look from the evening replaying in my head like a cruel movie I couldn't turn off. My wallet was empty, my savings gone, and my dignity? My own family had stripped that away in front of strangers. But as I stared into the darkness, something inside me shifted. The hurt was still there, raw, bleeding, impossible to ignore. But beneath it, a fire was growing. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for their approval, or wait to be noticed like some forgotten extra in their picture-perfect show. No. If they wanted me to be invisible, then I would use that invisibility. I would watch them, study them, and when the time was right, I would strike in a way they would never forget. The next morning, I changed. When my mom called me to hurry up, I didn't rush like before. I moved slowly, deliberately, watching them scramble around the room, fussing over my sister's hair, my dad polishing his sunglasses. I didn't try to join their conversation. I didn't fight for a seat at the table. I just observed, and in that silence, I saw everything. I saw how my mom was obsessed with her image, snapping endless photos of her, perfect family, uploading them with captions like, "Grateful for these moments." I saw how my dad puffed up his chest whenever someone called him a provider, how he loved boasting about his success to strangers, and I saw how my sister thrived on attention, needing constant praise, needing to be the star. These weren't just quirks. There were weaknesses, and I was going to use them. At breakfast, when the waiter came by, I didn't rush to order. I leaned back and said calmly, "Oh, don't worry about me. I know they don't really see me anyway." The waiter froze, awkwardly glancing at my parents. My mom's smile faltered for the first time. My dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. I looked down at my plate, pretending not to notice. But inside, I smiled. For once, they were the ones squirming. Throughout the day, I pulled back even more. When they posed for photos, I stepped aside. If they handed me the phone, I refused gently. "No, it's okay. I'm not really part of these pictures, remember?" The stranger holding the camera would glance at me, confused, before snapping the shot. My parents would shuffle uncomfortably, and my sister would roll her eyes, and each time I could feel the balance shift. They were starting to notice the absence. They were starting to realize the picture didn't look so perfect without me in it. But I wasn't done. That evening, while they lounged in the suite scrolling through their phones, I sat by the window with my own. I opened one of the photos I had secretly asked a stranger to take. My family lined up on the beach, smiling, while I walked away in the distance. The photo was striking, honest, raw. It told the truth better than words ever could. I posted it online with a single caption. Sometimes, the loneliest place is right beside the people who should love you the most. My heart pounded as I hit upload, and then the notifications started. Friends, classmates, even distant relatives. Messages poured in. "Are you okay? Why do they always leave you out? You deserve better than this." Within hours, the picture spread. People began to question the very image my mom had worked so hard to build. The perfect family she paraded online was cracking, the truth spilling through the cracks. And for the first time, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. That night, I didn't just lie awake on my cot. I sat up, phone in hand, watching the reactions grow, watching the tension build in the room as my parents noticed the comments. "Why would you post that?" My mom hissed, her voice tight. I looked at her calmly. "Because it's the truth. She opened her mouth to argue but stopped. For once, she had no words. And in that silence, I realized something powerful. I didn't need to scream to be heard. I didn't need to fight to be seen. All I needed was to hold up a mirror. And I had just begun. Because this wasn't the end of my revenge. It was only the first move. The morning after my post went up, the energy in the room was different. The suite that had once been filled with laughter and chatter now buzzed with tension, thick and unspoken. My mom sat on the bed, scrolling through her phone with a stiff jaw. My dad paced by the balcony, his arms crossed. My sister tried to act casual, humming to herself. But I caught the way she kept glancing at me. Sharp, irritated, as if she knew something had shifted. And me? I sat calmly by the window, sipping coffee, my phone in hand. Every few minutes, I checked the notifications. Another comment, another message, another person asking questions my family didn't want to answer. It was working. At lunch that day, we went to a cafe by the beach. The waiter approached with a smile, notebook in hand. "What can I get for you today?" My sister immediately ordered her usual. Something flashy, sweet, perfect for her photos. My parents followed, confident, familiar. When the waiter turned to me, I leaned back and smiled faintly. "Oh, I don't think they really notice what I eat anyway." The words hung in the air like smoke. The waiter blinked, glancing awkwardly at my parents. My dad coughed and my mom forced a laugh. "Of course we notice," she said quickly, too quickly, but her eyes betrayed her. For the first time, she looked rattled. And I savored the silence that followed. That evening, we returned to the beach for sunset. The sky was painted in streaks of gold and crimson, the waves crashing rhythmically against the shore. Families gathered all around, snapping pictures, laughing, holding hands. My mom insisted on a family photo. "Come on," she said, pulling my dad and sister close. "We need at least one good shot together." She turned to me. "Can you take it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I thought I wasn't part of the picture." The stranger nearby, who had offered to help, frowned slightly, confused. My sister rolled her eyes. "Just take it, okay?" So I did. I snapped the photo of them, smiling, posing, pretending everything was perfect. And then, as the stranger handed my phone back, I quietly asked him, "Could you take one more? All of us this time." He nodded eagerly, but instead of stepping in beside them, I walked a few paces away. The camera clicked. The photo showed it all. My family huddled together, grinning like a commercial. And me, walking away, my back turned, the distance between us wider than the ocean behind us. Later that night, I posted it with a caption. "A family trip doesn't mean family for everyone." The reaction was immediate. Comments poured in, sharper this time. "Why aren't you in any of the photos? Why do they always leave you out?" This breaks my heart. People started tagging my parents. Friends, relatives, even family friends, began asking questions. The mask was cracking wide open. Back at the hotel, the silence was unbearable. My mom's phone buzzed constantly, her fake smile long gone. My dad muttered under his breath, pacing the room. My sister snapped at me, her voice dripping with venom. "Why are you doing this? You're making us look bad." I met her glare with calm eyes. "Maybe you should have thought of that before you made me feel like I wasn't even part of this family." For once, she didn't have a comeback. The real breaking point came the next day at dinner. We sat at another crowded restaurant, families laughing all around us. When the waiter came to take orders, my parents tried to act normal, but their voices shook. My sister kept looking around, clearly paranoid someone might recognize us from my posts. When the waiter finally turned to me, I spoke loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I'll just have water. After all, I wouldn't want to waste anyone's money again." The room went still. A couple at the next table looked over. My mom's face flushed red. My dad's jaw clenched. My sister hissed, "Stop it!" under her breath. But I didn't stop. I leaned forward, my voice calm but sharp as glass. "You've ignored me this whole trip. You've excluded me from every picture, every meal, every moment. And you think no one notices? Guess what? They do now. Silence. Utter silence." For the first time, my parents couldn't laugh it off. They couldn't wave it away. The mask was gone. and all that was left was the truth. That night, I didn't just feel invisible anymore. I felt powerful, because the tables had turned. They couldn't erase me anymore. The world had seen what they tried to hide, and the best part? This was only the beginning of the consequences they would face. The night before we were supposed to leave, the suite felt different. There was no laughter, no music, no clinking glasses from room service trays, only silence. Heavy. Suffocating. My mom sat on the edge of the bed, her phone in her hand, scrolling endlessly through comments. Her lips were pressed thin, her shoulders tight. My dad stood by the balcony, staring out at the city lights like he wished he could disappear into them, and my sister lay on her bed with her headphones in. But I knew they weren't playing music. She just wanted an excuse not to talk to anyone. I sat by the window, as I had every night, watching the waves crash against the shore below. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Another message, another comment, another person asking questions they couldn't answer. Finally, my mom broke the silence. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "You didn't have to post that picture." I turned slowly, meeting her eyes. "Didn't I?" She flinched. "People are asking questions. They're wondering why you're always left out. They're wondering why you look so..." She cut herself off, shaking her head. "You didn't have to make us look bad." I let out a bitter laugh. "Make you look bad? I didn't make anything. I just showed the truth." My dad turned from the balcony, his face tight with anger. "You embarrassed us. Do you realize how many people have seen those posts? Do you know what they're saying about us?" I stood then, my hands trembling but my voice steady. "They're saying exactly what I've felt this entire trip. That you've ignored me. That you've treated me like I don't exist. That you've chosen to erase me from this family." My mom shook her head, her voice rising. "That's not true." "Yes, it is," I snapped, louder than I'd ever spoken to them before. My words cut through the silence, sharp and undeniable. "You gave my sister the best bed while I slept on a cot. You ordered her favorite food, while no one even noticed mine was wrong. You took 100 pictures of her, of yourselves. And when I tried to join, you pushed me out. You made me the photographer, the outsider, the stranger." My sister sat up then, her headphones sliding off her ears. "You're being dramatic." "No one meant to," I cut her off with a glare. Don't you dare tell me I'm being dramatic. You smirked every time I was left out. You enjoyed it." She went quiet. For once, she had nothing to say. I looked back at my parents. My chest was tight, my eyes burning, but I refused to let the tears fall. All I ever wanted was to be part of this family, to feel like I mattered, but you made it clear. I was never enough for you. Not like her. Not like the daughter you were proud of. The words hung in the air, heavy, undeniable. My mom's face crumpled. My dad looked away. My sister shifted uncomfortably, her confidence cracking. And for the first time in my life, they were silent. No excuses, no laughter, no pretending, just silence. And the weight of their guilt pressed down on them like a storm. I stepped back, my voice soft but firm. "Now you know how it feels, to be treated like a stranger." And then, I turned away, leaving them in that silence. That night, as I lay on the cot for the last time, I didn't feel invisible anymore. I didn't feel erased. I felt free, because I had faced them. I had spoken the truth they tried so hard to bury, and whether they admitted it or not, they couldn't erase it anymore. The trip that was supposed to showcase their perfect family had ended in ruins. But for me, it was the beginning of something new, a voice I had found, a strength I never knew I had. When we finally packed our bags and left that hotel, there was no laughter. No excited chatter. No perfect family photos to share online. The car ride home was silent. My sister stared out the window, fidgeting with her phone. My dad kept his eyes locked on the road, his jaw clenched tight, and my mom, she kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror, her expression unreadable. Guilt, maybe, or shame. But she didn't say a word. None of them did, and me, I sat in the back, the same seat where I had first felt invisible. But now, I didn't feel invisible anymore, because I wasn't the same girl who had walked into that trip, desperate to be noticed, desperate to be loved. No, I was someone stronger. Someone who had finally realized that being ignored doesn't make you worthless. It makes you dangerous if you know how to use it. I thought about everything that had happened. Every exclusion, every slight, every careless word. I had spent so long waiting for them to see me, to accept me. But what I hadn't realized was that I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to fit into their picture to be whole. The truth is, sometimes the deepest betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who are supposed to love you the most, and that hurts more than anything. But it also teaches you something powerful, that you can survive without them, that you can build strength out of their rejection, that you can step out of the shadows and into your own light. If you're listening to this, maybe you felt it too. Maybe you've been the forgotten one, the overlooked one, the stranger at your own family's table. And maybe you've told yourself, like I did, that it was your fault, that you weren't enough. But let me tell you something. It's not your fault. You are enough, and the fact that others can't see your worth doesn't make it disappear. Sometimes being ignored is what forces you to find your own voice, and sometimes the revenge isn't about hurting them back. It's about standing up, speaking the truth, and showing them, and yourself, that you were never invisible. When I look back on that trip now, I don't just remember the pain. I remember the moment I finally stopped being silent. I remember the power I felt when I realized they couldn't erase me anymore. And I remember the strength of walking away, not just in that photo, but in my heart. Being treated like a stranger by your own family doesn't make you less. It makes you stronger. It makes you resilient. It makes you see that you don't need anyone's approval to matter. And that is the lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. So maybe this story isn't just mine. Maybe it's for anyone who has ever been pushed aside, ignored, or made to feel invisible. Remember this. You don't need to beg to be seen. Stand tall, speak your truth, and when the time comes, let the world see you for who you are. Because in the end, the people who treated you like nothing will be the ones who realize they lost everything.